Well, this video helped out a lot of people heading into this week, so we're running it back this week because getting ahead of the game cannot be overstated at this point. We're going through Week 17's top 12 fantasy defense rankings for you to get out ahead and get those guys on the waiver wire now if you have the roster space to do it. Now, again, I want to make clear like I did last week, this is very subject to change when you see the Week 17 rankings after Week 16's full game slate. So everything is subject to change. But make sure to go down there, drop a like on this video, and subscribe to the channel to show your support. So getting into our first tier, I've got the Chargers defense at number 1, and they are taking on the New England Patriots. So this is obviously being filmed after the Chargers and the Broncos just took on each other in a very high-octane Thursday night matchup that was super fun for fantasy football, I might add. But the Chargers defense obviously really hasn't been good the past 2 weeks when you factor in this Broncos game right here. But again, my big thing is like when you're at this point in the season, you need to be looking at who's done really well for the majority of the season. And the Chargers defense is the number 6 defense in fantasy football right now, averaging 7.7 fantasy points per game. And the Chargers get a massive break once again here in schedule when they get the New England Patriots on, I believe it's Saturday that following week. The next week is very screwy with schedules. But the Chargers, the point being, they get a great matchup here against a turnover-prone offense, and the Chargers themselves are very good at getting after the quarterback and have been absolutely capable of getting takeaways as well. Number 2, I've got the Seahawks defense at the Chicago Bears. I seem to be betting against the Chicago Bears while a lot of people are pushing back on my bets against the Chicago Bears. Listen, the Chicago Bears have lost like 8 straight games. It's absolutely insane the run they're on, and it's not a good run. And I think that this team, I've been saying this for a while, I think they're ready for a vacation. They're ready to go off to the Bahamas. They're ready to go take a trip to Europe where they go backpacking to go find themselves. That's what the Bears are doing right now. And the Seahawks, they still have a chance for the division depending on how this game goes for them against the Minnesota Vikings. And the Seahawks defense, we know that they can absolutely be extraordinarily dominant getting turnovers and getting after your quarterback. So just the shape that the Bears are in heading into this week, maybe if they play better than I think they will against the Lions, I'll be feeling a little differently about this one. But as of right now, I think the Seahawks defense next week will be a great play. The Eagles defense at number 3, they're taking on the Dallas Cowboys at home. Now, let me make something really clear. The Cowboys offense has actually looked pretty decent the past month. Like, they're able to move the ball way better than they were when Cooper Rush first came in. They're actually using Rico Dowdle more. The run game has actually really come together under this new offense with Cooper Rush. But the Eagles defense is going to be a buzzsaw for them. You know, the Eagles, they're having their own issues right now offensively. I don't know if you're following this whole thing with Sirianni and the offense being kind of a disaster right now. But their defense is the really stable part of this team right now. Now, they have not been fantastic in fantasy football, which is why they haven't made too many massive appearances inside the top 5 in my personal rankings. But I think this is a week where they take on the Cowboys. It'll be at home, and I do think they will take advantage of the Cowboys because even though the Cowboys can put up points, they can also put up turnovers as well. Now, dropping down to our next tier, I've got the Steelers defense versus the Kansas City Chiefs, and at number 5, the Chiefs defense at the Steelers. So this is a Christmas Day game. They're both playing tomorrow, Saturday in Week 16. So obviously we'll need to know how both these teams end up looking. Now, the reason the Steelers are here is because with the Chiefs, it's been kind of the whole season we've been discussing this. The Chiefs have not been putting up tons of offensive points. What they have been doing is they've been just squeaking out wins one way or the other. I think it's very good to get the wins, but that's a different story for a different day. The Steelers defense is so good even against top offenses. Like, they will get fantasy points because they get sacks and they get turnovers. And the Chiefs actually have a negative turnover differential. Now, the Steelers, on the other hand, they have one of the best turnover differentials right up there with Buffalo because they are able to force so many of them. Now, the Chiefs, on the other hand, if the Steelers do not have Pickens by then, the Steelers can't move the ball without George Pickens. It has been proven. They got lucky 1 week against the Cleveland Browns defense, but last week against the Philadelphia Eagles, they were abysmal trying to move the ball. So if Pickens is not back and he will not play against the Ravens, they have nothing going for them. They can't do anything. So the Chiefs, very similar to the Eagles in a way where it's like they don't force too many turnovers or anything like that, but I do think if it's no Pickens, they will not score many points on the Chiefs, and that's why I think they would be a top 5 play as of today. The Rams defense are at number 6, and they take on the Arizona Cardinals. Now, Truth be told, I was really tempted to move the Rams at the top of this tier because I think the Rams versus the Cardinals, if they were not in division, the Rams would easily beat them because the Cardinals are so hot and cold offensively, and they've been really cold over the past month. But the Rams versus Cardinals is obviously a divisional game. These divisional games are really tough. I thought coming into that Rams 49ers Thursday night game that the Rams would beat them pretty easily. Well, we all know what happened. That was a gross, disgusting weather game, and it was a really close matchup. The Rams and Cardinals could very easily turn into a weird slugfest or potentially a shootout. So the Rams defense, I do like the fact that they're able to get after your quarterback and make some turnovers, and the fact that Kyler and company have been turning the ball over and not putting up as many points lately. But I do have them down at here at number 6, just below the Steelers and the Chiefs, just to kind of safeguard myself. But the Rams, honestly, they're kind of really big, subject to change after week 16. Look, the reality is that the fantasy football playoffs are already hard enough, and especially when you have to make sure that you're getting ahead of your waiver wire claims, that could be a really tough task as in itself. But if you're really confident in your team moving on to the week 17 NFL championship for the fantasy playoffs, then you can really use a tool like over at GideUp Sports. GideUp Sports has this super cool automated waiver wire machine where it essentially just makes sure that you can grab a player, grab a team, grab whoever you want, prioritize them in order ahead of time. So you could schedule a waiver wire pickup weeks in advance on GideUp's tool. This is a super cool automation that was set up by one of my buddies over there. I cannot endorse this site enough. This is something that I particularly would love to use. As somebody who does YouTube on his own, it's a one-man show over here, and a lot of times in my own leagues, I kind of forget sometimes to pick up waiver wire players. This tool is perfect for me particularly, and I'm sure it's perfect for you as well. Now, right now, this is only on Yahoo Fantasy Football, but I can tell you this for sure. If you have Yahoo Fantasy Football, this is a fantastic tool, and it's also free. So just go over to GideUpSports.com, click the link in the comments below, and get out ahead of your waiver wire to win the fantasy football playoffs. Dropping now to our next tier, I've got the Bills defense at number 7 versus the New York Jets. Now again, very similar to the Rams defense, I actually wanted to move the Bills up above the Steelers and the Chiefs. Now again, it's a divisional matchup here. The Jets have also been playing much better offensively over most of the past month and a half or so. So I don't exactly think this will be a low-scoring matchup. If the Bills and the Jets both get into a shootout, I could easily see that happening. But the problem with the Bills defense against the Jets is over the past 2 years, like the Jets have actually played the Bills pretty well. So I don't know if I see the Bills totally shutting them down, but I'm believing in the Bills this week and next week early because of the fact that the Bills defense can take advantage of lesser teams. This team has the best turnover differential this year because they take advantage of disgraceful teams, and the Jets are a disgraceful team. Even though they better offensively, I still think the Bills could be a good play in week 17. The Colts defense at number 8 at the New York Giants. The Colts defense, listen, the matchup couldn't be better. Well, you know what? The matchup is also really great in week 16 as well, and I cannot put much confidence in the Colts. I mean, this feels pretty generous to have them at number 8 right here, but, you know, I will say with the Colts defense, what's kept them around, sometimes having good weeks, sometimes not having good weeks, is that they're streaky. You know, they have 33 sacks on the year so far, but they also have 21 total turnovers. That's a really good number. That's why they've been able to have good weeks, because they get those turnovers necessary for fantasy production. So given the fact that they're taking on a really horrific offensive line and an offense that is absolutely turnover prone, I think the Colts are going to be a top 10 play, but it would not surprise me at all if the Colts ended up having a pretty mediocre game as well. Now, number 9, rounding out this tier, the Bucs defense at the Carolina Panthers. So listen here. I had an opportunity to put the Cardinals defense inside the top 12 this week. They're taking on the Panthers this week. I opted not to do that just because of the way the Cardinals have been playing, and I think the Panthers have a bounce back game against them. The Bucs right now, they're in a different scenario than the Cardinals are heading into that game versus the Panthers. Bucs are trying to lock up a division, right? So they have this divisional matchup versus Carolina. They need to win this game. And the Bucs defense, very similar to the Tampa Bay Bucs, by the way, is very, very streaky in fantasy football. They are literally separated by 1 in fantasy football defense right now. Colts are the defense number 19. Tampa is the defense number 18, and it's a very, very similar story. Tampa has 38 sacks, and they have 18 total turnovers. Streaky, not consistent at all. So I do think in this matchup versus Carolina, where Carolina will they're already done. They're fighting for pride at this point, but the Bucs defense is going to be trying to win this game very hard to lock up division and make sure their seeding is totally organized and ironed out for them heading into the actual NFL playoffs. Dropping down to our last tier. The Lions defense at number 10 at the San Francisco 49ers. Yeah, they're going to be back here. I'm fully expecting them to be back here in top 12 territory. Now, this week, obviously, I've gotten a ton of flack for having them ranked inside my top 3. Understandable, especially the fact that you guys are generally right when the mass majority of you are against my defensive pick. You guys are right, to your credit. But the Lions defense at the San Francisco 49ers, I also find this one to be a good matchup as well. Not particularly as favorable as I think they will get versus the Bears this week. But obviously the 49ers, they have nothing to play for at this point. Brock Purdy has been extremely turnover prone, and he doesn't have his full allotment of weapons. He has Deebo Samuel, but the guy's disappeared. It's over for Deebo Samuel this year for sure. Jawan Jennings is his only functional wide receiver piece, and as of today, Isaac Guerrero is not there right now. So they're down there like their 5th string running back at this point in San Francisco. So as depleted as the Lions defense is, the 49ers are just depleted. So they met their match. So as far as I'm concerned, it's even Steven in this one. And I think the Lions are just a superior team. And I think they will be a top 10 play in week 17. And the Raiders defense, can you believe it? They made it back inside my top 12. I don't know how to feel about it. Honestly, if the matchup wasn't so good, they wouldn't sniff it. But they get to take on the Saints. And listen, the Saints are like barely an NFL functioning offense right now. Like, their quarterback situation is disgraceful. Jay Kaner, Spencer Rattler, whatever you want to do, their offensive room is horrific, led by those quarterbacks. Then you get no Alvin Kamara likely for the rest of the season. You have no more Chris Olave. Obviously, Rashid Shaheed's long gone. I mean, they literally have nothing. They have nothing. It's impossible for the Raiders not to have a decent game at the very least. The Raiders actually, too, low-key, have played decent performances. Not good. They've had some decent performances over the last month. Kansas City, that Week 13 game, 6 fantasy points. Tampa Bay, 9 fantasy points. And Atlanta, 9 fantasy points. So just the direction they've headed in, and the fact that they have actually played some, decent defense, and the fact that New Orleans has nothing, the Raiders, I've got them inside the top 12, and I would not be surprised if they made me look like a fool once again. At number 12, to round out this tier, the Ravens defense at the Houston Texans. Listen, the Ravens defense is obviously nothing to get all excited over or anything like that. They've consistently disappointed inside of the defense rankings, but the Ravens do play the Houston Texans. I do think it's a favorable matchup, just the way that Houston has played. And I look back to that playoff game last year where the Ravens beat the Houston Texans pretty bad. And the Texans, in my opinion, back then were actually a better offense than they are today and when they will be taking on the Ravens. So for me personally, in this Christmas Day matchup, I think that the Houston Texans and the Ravens here, both coming off short weeks, I favor the Ravens to have a much better game here, even though it's in Houston, because I just don't think Houston's offense will be able to score many points on the Ravens, and I think they will be overwhelmed by the Ravens offense, and it will become a blowout, and I think that will open up some sack opportunities and some interception opportunities for the Ravens defense. So let me know how your lineup is setting up to be in Week 16, and if you want to see Week 16's top 12 defenses, click on this video right here.